Good evening and welcome to the news in brief. His Royal Highness Prince Faisal the Regent received at Al Husseiniya Palace Algerian Foreign Minister Abdelkader Moussahel, who delivered a letter by Algerian President Abdelaziz Bouteflika to His Majesty the King. Prince Faisal and Moussahel reviewed Jordanian-Algerian ties, agreeing on the need to reopen the High Joint Committee meetings, as well as developing regional issues. Prince Faisal conveyed His Majesty's greetings to the Algerian President. In a separate meeting, Minister of Foreign and Expatriate Affairs Ayman al-Safadi and his Algerian counterpart agreed to set a date for a meeting of the Joint Higher Committee in Algiers before year's end. The committee, which last met in 2006, will hold expert-level meetings in Amman prior to Algiers to identify sectors and scopes for cooperation. Safadi and Moussahel agreed to take steps to improve institutional, legal and economic frameworks to allow for increased private sector cooperation between the two countries. The meeting also discussed regional developments, including the Syrian crisis, Libya, anti-terrorism efforts, as well as an end to the Palestinian issue based on a two-state solution. And to Syria, where civilians are fleeing Raqqa as U.S.-backed forces slowly advance to dislodge Daesh terrorists from the stronghold in the city. The U.S.-backed Syrian Democratic Forces, the SDF, are providing help to the displaced people who speak of the difficulties of escaping the city, where there has been shortage of food and drinking water. According to the commander of a Syrian military council, the SDF progress has been slow, as Daesh uses mines, tunnels, snipers, as well as civilians as human shields. About 2,000 members of Daesh are estimated to remain in Raqqa. Over to Iraq, and a spokesman with the Al-Hasht al-Sha'bi, or the Popular Mobilization, said the U.S.-led coalition fighting Daesh killed and wounded a number of its fighters in an attack yesterday. An airstrike near the border with Syria yesterday killed 36 members of Al-Hasht al-Sha'bi and wounded 75 others. But the U.S.-led coalition denied responsibility for the attack near the border and said the allegations were inaccurate. The U.S.-led coalition also denied conducting airstrikes in that area at the time. In Yemen, 4 soldiers and 6 Al-Qaeda terrorists were killed and 10 soldiers wounded in a foiled suicide attack on an army camp in Abyan province, south of the country. The Yemeni army has been preparing to deploy across Abyan to try to drive Al-Qaeda terrorists out of the province. Meanwhile, the World Health Organization is trying to prevent the closing of the Yemeni blood bank by sending further supplies following reports it may be forced to close due to lack of funding. The National Blood Transfusion Center is faced with a crisis after the French medical charity Médecins Sans Frontières said it will suspend its aid after more than 2 years of work in Yemen. Medical officials have issued an appeal to civil society groups to help save lives, saying the center suffers from a complete shortage of medical solutions, blood bags, and other medical needs. In China, 5 people were killed and more than 60 were injured when a 7-magnitude earthquake hit the country's southwest Sichuan province. The quake hit a sparsely populated area, trapping 100 tourists in a landslide and collapsing and cracking some houses in a scenic spot. The quake was also strongly felt in the provincial capital Chengdu, about 300 kilometers south of the epicenter. And it has been 72 years since the first atomic bomb was ever used against human beings in Japan. The Japanese city of Hiroshima marked the 72nd anniversary of the atomic bomb with a ceremony attended by some 50,000 people. Survivors and families of victims and representatives of 80 countries offered flowers and prayers at Hiroshima's Peace Memorial Park near ground zero of the detonation. The bombing had leveled the city, killing an estimated 214,000 people by the end of 1945. A A group of German sand artists hope to enter the Guinness Book of World Records for the world's tallest sandcastle. Over the next few weeks, they will turn blocks of sand into a giant sandcastle after a failed attempt last year. The current record was set by an Indian artist in February and stands at an incredible 14.84 meters. Last September, the German group built a sandcastle measuring 14.15 meters, which would have broken the world record, but they were disqualified for technical reasons. The group will present their latest attempt to judges on September 1st. In sports, thousands of Real Madrid and Manchester United fans were in Macedonia to watch their teams play for the UEFA Super Cup trophy. The Super Cup match, which started a few minutes ago, pits the winner of the Champions League Real against the winner of the Europa League United. Australian Nick Kyrgios blazed to a 6-1, 6-2 first-round win over Victor Troicki at the Rogers Cup in Montreal, but warned he was rolling the dice with a hip injury that could flare up at any time. But the 16th seed showed no signs of distress in dispatching Troicki after 51 minutes. And finally, it will continue to be hot and humid for the rest of tonight and tomorrow, with a low of 23 degrees Celsius tonight and a high of 35 degrees tomorrow in Amman. In the Gulf of Aqaba, a high of 42 degrees Celsius is forecast for tomorrow, with northerly moderate winds and calm seas. With this, we come to the end of our brief news. I'm Dana Abusham. Thanks for watching and have a good night.